Hello everyone, group members. We're back again here for another tutorial on XML HTTP request. This is going to be a really helpful tutorial. Um, in my development experience, I think I've used XML HTTP request or some form of an AJAX request in almost every project that I've worked on. What we're talking about is just being able to transmit data between two servers or between two websites, you could say. So that's kind of what we're going to walk through today, how you make that happen. So let's get started here. Um, W3 Schools has a really good introduction to XML HTTP requests, so I would suggest taking a look at that and getting familiar with the documentation on how to do an XML HTTP request. We'll be focusing on the HTTP portion of that of this topic. And what I'm going to do is explain a little bit here in W3 Schools. Then I'm going to take you over to my website that I've been working on for the class, and I'll show you how I implemented it. And we'll start from ground zero and work our way up, and we'll cap off with the example that I'm using. So let's jump in here. It says that the XML HTTP request. All modern browsers have a built-in XML HTTP request object to request data from a server. So when you hear of an API, if you're interacting with an API on the front end, you're probably using this object. And it says the XML HTTP request object is a developer's dream because you can update a web page without reloading the page. You can request data from a server after the page is loaded, receive data, or send data to a server in the background. And this will be really nice in the future as you're developing web pages and you want to make them very dynamic and have new data come in and old data leave and delete things and add things without having to refresh the page. And that makes it really nice. And it's just a very simple communication pattern between different types of different server locations. So let's jump into my site and see how I'm handling this. So here's my website. Let me just refresh it here. So this is kind of where I put all of my code. And this week I was focusing on all of these different topics here on the left. So we got quite a couple things going on. And we'll see that in our code as we work through it. But here I'm going to fill the table through object creation. So I basically have a bunch of data, and I have a function that maps that data to specific objects, and boom, there are all of our states. I'm going to show you exactly what we're working with here. What I want to happen when I hit view state properties, you'll see here it cuts off a little bit on the right hand side, but what I wanted to show were all of the properties associated with that object, and then you can as well add a property. So you can say capital equals Birmingham or whatever it is. I don't remember. And boom, there it is. It's added now. What I want to add to implement the XML HTTP request is a button where if I press it, I can get all of the senators or Congress people from the state of Alabama. I want to be able to do this with each of the states so that we can have a little accountability on what's going on in the state. So here we go. I'm gonna drag in here's some code. So what happened there was I was using the function show table info to create some things, create that cell information. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and oh, perfect. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new button that's going to be our trigger. So here I'm going to say, right now it says add property button. I'm going to go down and I'm going to get my Congress people button because that's where I want to add that. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to create a button. It's going to have a bootstrap type of primary. And then instead of on-click add state button, let's go ahead and we're going to make a function called get Congress people. And we're going to pass it some parameters here, and you'll see that this is kind of an interesting way to do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to pass the state abbreviation into this method. And then I'm going to say add, let's say get Congress people xmlHttpRequest. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what that did. So here we go, we're loading this again. We're going to say use state properties. Good. So we have our Congress people button. So now let's go ahead and make the function for it. Function get Congress people. We're going to pass it a parameter of state abbreviation. And here we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and write some pseudocode for exactly what we want to do. First thing that we want to do with an XML HTTP request is go by the protocol on how to open that request. So the first thing is, number one, is we're going to open a connection between the API. And well, before that, let's go ahead and create the API endpoint, because we need to know what we're going to be requesting first, what URL we're going to be requesting to get the data that we want. And then once we have that connection open, what we're going to do is we're going to send that connection, send that connection, or send that request is probably better. And then once we've sent that request, what will happen is we'll get a response body back, and we need to parse that response. And then we will do something with the response objects. Okay. Alright, perfect. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this and see what we can get here. It's nice. I've actually already got the URL for the API string that we're hitting here. I went ahead and used the capital letters to create a const, just because I know that this will be staying the same. So here's the endpoint for this data, and actually let me just go ahead and show you exactly what this API looks like. So let's go ahead and put in Vermont, and then you'll see that this API provides me with a bunch of information about all the senators and congresspeople and the House of Representative members within the state of Vermont. And we can switch here and say Texas, and then we should get a much larger list for this one. So there you go, you kind of have an idea of what we're getting at here. So let's go ahead and follow the, so here's step number one here for you. So what we're going to do is create an XHR object. XHR is, you'll see it's just XML for the HTTP for the or sorry, XML for the X, HTTP for the H, and R request. Um, so you open the connection here and you say, I want to do a GET, because there are several things you can do through an API. You can either GET, you can post, you can patch. Right now we're getting data, so we're going to say we're getting. And then let's say API string, because that's the endpoint that we're looking to go to. This last argument is whether you want this call to be synchronous or non-synchronous. If you say, it's if you want it to be asynchronous or not asynchronous. If you put true, the rest of your function will run without you getting the data back. And I dealt with that for quite a while, so keep that in mind. So put false, and you'll see why. And then we'll say xhr.send, and let's just go ahead and say console.log. And then let's go ahead and say xhr.response. All right. Now let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. I'm interested to find out. So let's go ahead and here and we'll inspect this just to check what's going on. So we got let's get our congressperson. Oh, and we got some information back. Here's what we got back from the response. Looks great. Looks exactly, you'll notice that it looks exactly like what it did when we're on the website. Actually, I have the website right here, so it's very similar to what we're working with. So now let's do something with that data. And this is pretty simple. What we're going to do is, I'm going to copy over some code here. Now we're on step 3 here. Now we're going to parse the response, and that's pretty simple. We're going to use this json.parse tool, and we're going to say xhr.response and then close that. So that's going to parse exactly what we just saw. And then if you see within that response, let's go back here, you'll see that the JavaScript that you can say dot objects, and that's going to give you everything that's within here. So there's, for the state of Texas, it would be 23 items. So that's what we're trying to get with the dot objects, and you'll notice that when you json.parse, it gives you something very nice. So if you had something that looked like, let's do, well, if you had something that was objects, and then you had more objects within that, and then you had, well, let's say you had students, you would be able to say json.parse xhr response.objects.students if you wanted to get right to the students. So JSON makes it very easy to navigate through the response object quite simply. So we got that. Let's go ahead and console.log the Congress people just to see what we're working with here. So let's go back. Alright, so let's go ahead and fill the table again, and we'll say get Congress. Oh, sweet. So we have these objects now, and let's take a look. So we got 9 back. Great. So it looks like we have a person object, and now that person object tells us a little bit more about Richard Shelby. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to get at. So if we switch to Colorado, say get congressperson, oh, there we go, and we have a new set. All right. So everything's looking really good so far. Now at this point, I think what we're going to do is we're going to find an element, and this is going to be A list, what we want to do at this point is do something with the response object. So what we want to do is we want to create a list of all the Congress people and display it. Alright, that's pretty easy. So here we have a Congress people div right down here. Okay. What we're going to do with that is we're going to grab that element, and that's what we're going to do. Actually, that was wrong. We're going to get rid of that because we're not going to add it to that list. We're going to add it to the Congress people list, so a little bit different. So this is a little bit of a lesson as well in DOM manipulation. So what we're going to do is use these nice tools that the document class provides us in JavaScript to create an element, and that element will be a list. And then within that list, let's see here, what we're going to do is we're going to create, so this is a list item. We're creating a list item at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to create text within that list. So we're creating a text node, and we're going to provide it. So we're going to provide it the congressperson's first name and their last name. And how we're going to do this is we're going to iterate through all of the congresspeople objects, and then we're going to we're going to index by I and then say dot person dot first name or dot last name. And we're going to append the text object, the text node, to the list item node. And then we're going to grab the Congress people list, and we're going to append that. We're going to append the element that we created here that already has the text to this Congress people list. Let's see what happens now. Alright, going through back again. Let's say get Congress people. Oh, perfect. Look at that. So now we have a list of all of the Congress people. Richard Shelby, Robert Adderholt. We got everybody here. So this is looking very nice now. It's kind of funny that we just yesterday I used this program and Jeff Sessions was on here, but it looks like he's been replaced now since he is now in a different position in the government. So the nice thing about APIs is that they're constantly updating, which provides good data. So now let's go ahead and switch to Connecticut and let's add Congress people. Oh, this is a problem. You'll see that our Alabama people are still on the list, and we just added our Connecticut people on the list, but we don't want to confuse the user because these people are not Congress people in the state of Connecticut. So let's go ahead and make some changes here. So we recognize that every single time that we get Congress people, we really want to remove all of the people that were in the list before. So this is pretty simple. Here's another DOM manipulation tool and a really good way to clean up your HTML as necessary. We're going to do exactly the same thing that we did down here. We're going to find the congressperson list. That's very similar to what we already did. And we're going to create a while loop, and we're going to say while the Congress list has child nodes, so those list items, let's go ahead and use the .remove child to get rid of that child node, and then we'll keep going until there are no more child nodes. So let's see how this works. Hopefully this does exactly what we want it to. So let's go back. Let's go ahead and say Alabama. Let's add our Congress people. Perfect, there they are. Now let's go ahead and look at the District of Columbia. Notice the names. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Now all of our Congress people from Alabama have been deleted. Now we only have Eleanor Norton. So it looks like everything's working exactly like we want it to. So just to recap here, this is a very powerful tool here with the xmlHttp request. We're able to go to an external server, grab some data, and then use that data on our own web page. This is a great way to enhance your web page or web pages, and there are APIs out there for almost anything. So you can really gather a lot of data onto your own personal website very quickly using these tools. So this has been a little tutorial on XML HTTP requests. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.